So I put together this presentation. I ran some stuff past Mr. Hibbs, and the idea was like, a lot of times you hear the words like froofy, loofy, or like, soft stuff with positive reinforcement. And so I'm here to say that some of those things are correct. But a lot of things we do in education, sometimes we get I call it the like, what's that online site that people like to put all their lesson plans on?
Teachers Be Teachers?
It's like that one.
Plans?
I'm spacing it. But like, you get the little Snapchat version of it. I'll go with that. That's not the word I'm looking for. And sometimes we miss some of the bigger concepts with it. Yay. Don't worry. I like to just start, so it's good. So, my name is Daniel Ludvigson. I'm the superintendent, in case any of you missed that.
Nobody in here knows you.
No. I just hide in my office all day. That guy that works out on the table, he's a scarecrow. So,
You threw me for a loop when I walked in and you were wearing a cowboy hat. I'm like,
yeah, that's just church attire in North Dakota. At least the cowboy shirt. The hat, So, first one, I have a demonstration. So, pick a partner that you don't mind touching. And I don't mean inappropriately. So, I want you first, one person is going to push against the other person, and one is going to resist, okay? So, I want you to pick that person, and I'm going to give you a prompt. Sure. Okay, Nancy's going to resist. First, I'm just going to think, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Okay, then I want to be able to think about a really terrible thing that happened to me. I'm not going to pick the worst, though, because that's just sad. And then I'm going to try to push.
oh my.
You know his difference?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to think of a really, great thing I did. Directions are all there. If you can't read, ask a neighbor. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
So pick a neighbor, give that a try. When you do the one with the just thinking something positive, like choo-choo train, sort of like I can. But when you do the bottom one, like something you achieved. Okay? Pick a neighbor. Try it. It works. I swear. I tested it on my children. Okay. We can start wrapping it up. How many of you noticed a significant difference depending on your frame of mind?
I think I did.
If you notice different, put it up high because I'm not seeing that. Okay? Okay? So there is a difference in your frame of mind. Some of it's bigger, more dramatic. But it actually affects your thinking, how much your brain is firing. So that's a part of positivity you're trying to put in a bottle, lightning in a bottle. There's a different version of this test. I thought it would be less popular where you stick your hand in a cold vat of water, but you could try it. And if you have a lot of positive energy, you have more resilience, and so you can put up with it being in there longer. So that might be a good thing to bring to your next party. Disclosure, drinks probably help too. So maybe you've ever seen kind of a meme like this where it's okay, put on a happy face. So everyone gets a prize. Reward for doing, they got in line. Here is a prize. Here, you get a rabbit. Thank you for sitting and paying attention. Ooh,
Thanks.
very good. Jumping rabbit. I didn't even know I got that right. So, no punishment for misbehaviors. I'm just going to go over here and give Nancy stuff. And Cody's over there being a knothead, but I'm just going to ignore him. Okay. Heap on unearned praise, just excessive. Wow, you are really looking at me strong. Appreciate that. No boundaries, ignores bad behavior. So what I'm going to start with is some of that stuff is legitimate. And I'm going to excessively act some of it out for, A, humor, and B, to kind of make a point. So this book here is the children's book version of what I'm kind of trying to get. And it's from the Happiness Advantage, the Orange Frog, which is where the stuffed little frog comes from. And so I'll talk more about that later. But there's ways to do it that improve your resilience and make you more willing to tackle problems. And there's ways that are just kind of fluffy, foo-foo, make you feel good. So there is a difference. So what I think when you get positive reinforcement, positive feedback, that positivity correct, what you're doing is you're providing really good feedback. So, like I used to have an art project, and what the students got graded on was making adjustments when I gave them feedback. And I would refuse to give them a grade letter until they changed their art project. Does anybody know why I did that? What do you think happened if I gave them their letter grade first? What?
It was good enough.
It was good enough. Their feedback was, it's already a B. I'm good with the B. I don't need to make any changes. So I didn't give them the letter grade, because the letter grade, what is that? It's feedback. And it tells a message. You guys are familiar with students that, they take the class because it's an easy A. Is that really what we want them to get out of that? No, and there's a reason they get that. Is that an example where the positive feedback is not doing what you want it to? Yeah. So take a minute. You can think or write down or share with a partner. What makes you feel welcome? What makes you feel like you're accomplishing something really good? And how have others affected how you thought about your capability? Like things that people say that really make you go like, I can do this. So take a minute. Either share with a partner or write them down, either way. So if positivity is a word that has a negative connotation to you, I would encourage you to think of this as being intentional, because that's the way I look at it. The feedback we give people tell them what to pay attention to. So what is something that standardized tests do to people that perhaps puts your attention in the wrong places? Oh, I know there's people that have this criticism out here.
Yeah, but you're the superintendent.
That's okay. I taught art, so I was kind of upset that nobody cared about what my kids got on their tests. So like, if it, like take science, and I'm not sure where Minnesota's at, but when they took science off, one of the things that was recorded for standardized assessments for your school's performance, what did that do to its, like it shouldn't, but what did that do to its importance?
Downplay.
Yeah. So it tells you where to put your energy. Sometimes it provides an outlet for frustration. So if a student is upset, is it easier to be upset with you or themselves?
Themselves.
It's easier. So if you're giving feedback that's negative, I can simplify what's going on to Nancy doesn't like me. She doesn't deserve the frog anymore.
What? Give me back that frog.
Got it? And who said I didn't like you? Because you told him feedback that you didn't want.
So feedback can push you together or pull you apart. I had a board member, when I talked to him, he would say things like you, them, those. And hopefully you guys I try very hard to be like we, us, together. That language over time, people get familiar with which way you're going. And if your language is always them, us, or is it us, that tells people something. So that's the part about being intentional. What actions are rewarded? I was kind of getting at that, what really matters. And you can communicate respect or disrespect. So when the kid's raising their hand in math class and somebody answers, they go, that's so easy. What are they communicating?
Well,
This-
that's like a common thing in my room.
Well,
I tell them you're not allowed to say that's easy because it's not easy for everyone. So that's what I tell my kids.
So-
Easy if you know.
Well, that's why we're in schools to learn, right?
Right.
So one of the things I have like a mixed feelings about grading, and I'm not going against it, but like if we're practicing, why are we separating kids into A's and other letter grades if we're trying to master a skill? Just personal thought. So I got another one. So all of you have different observations, principal observations. If you get the thing back and you get all 5 stars all the way down the line, does that mean much to you?
No.
What is it actually telling you? There's that. What does it tell you about the person who filled it out?
Didn't spend much time.
They didn't spend much time on it. So even though that's like saying you're all-star, you're knocking it out of the park, if you don't feel like it's really meant, so not to pick on us as administrators, but to pick on us as administrators. So if you have the staff lounge and we put up a bunch of signs that say, grades, you know, you're donut the best or whatever. That was a terrible pun. But if that's not paired with me occasionally coming by and saying, hey, that was an awesome lesson, I notice X, Y, Z, does that mean much? Other than I had enough time to stop by the gas station.
Empty compliment.
Yeah. So I'm going to give some examples. I'm going to do some play acting. And you guys have been a great group. So I'm going to give you 2 phrases. And this is talking to Johnny, because I like to pick on Johnny. Johnny, you didn't get your work in on time, just like always. I can never count on you. You need to make up the work for half credit, and that as much as you deserve. So that says one thing. Hey, Johnny, your work isn't in on time, and unfortunately, man, that means you aren't going to receive full credit. I really want you to do well, but it's going to be pretty difficult if you only get half credit. I'll remind you to write in your assignment in your planner, then you won't forget. So is the consequence different? What does the first one tell the student?
Quit.
Yeah, not even try.
Quit. You're already behind. And I've seen people do this. And then they're like, why doesn't the kid do their homework? Like, because it's like,
I
why?
told them they can't do it.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. This you have to stick with what you say. But like it's communicating something different. You can tell a student that, hey, you're suspended with a smile on your face and they're still suspended because you want them to know that you want them to come back. So that's the point of that. Doesn't mean you tell them it's okay, that you had a rough day, you can punch Susie in the face because I don't like Susie anyway. That will get you in trouble, just to be clear. So here's a different scenario. Imagine talking to a parent. You need to work with your child. If you don't get 20 minutes of reading in every night, they're going to fall behind. They're already struggling in class, and they're becoming a behavior problem on top of it. Your child needs a little more time to become proficient. I believe we can get them there if you read every night for 20 minutes. That's all it takes. With that extra practice, they won't struggle as much. With that practice, I believe they will have an easier time staying focused and on task in class. So we already kind of talked about what the first scenario is communicating really, but what is the second one? What are the messages that are being said that aren't being said with the words?
Give it a suggestion.
It gave us a solution. A lot of we.
Well, they said that they're not there yet, but they can get there. Instead of just saying they're not there, they
There's a-
won't be there.
Yes, very good. You don't want to start off a conversation already setting up us versus them. Because I've only met a few parents, and one of them is in prison, that don't want the best for their child. Actually, even the one that ended up in prison did want what was best for their child, but maybe they had other problems. So most people, they might not have the skill set, they might struggle, and sometimes when they struggle, they want to find it to be somebody else's fault. But if somebody genuinely feels like you care about the kid and you're trying to help, most of the time you can get off to a good start. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but I'm saying the other way for sure will get the person mad with you. Pitfalls. So this little guy is avoiding holes. So there is ways that we give positive feedback that kind of miss the mark. And the 4 points I'm going to go over: being too vague, over-reliance on tangibles. Speaking of which, good job. Thinking is unaffected. That's an important one. And lowering your standards, also an important one. Because sometimes what we're communicating, sometimes the most important thing isn't what we said. Being too vague. So I was an art teacher. And so we spent a lot of time in this, you do your art talks and stuff like that. So you're smart, you're talented, you're athletic. What's the problem with those statements? I'm not saying never tell a kid that, but why is it ineffective?
Smart in what? It's not specific.
It's not specific. It's also a definitive statement. You are smart. You don't have to work towards it. You don't have to put effort into it. You just are. And the reason I tie that to my art experience, I had a lot of kids come in who were like, I'm an art student, and if I gave them feedback that didn't correlate with their image, I just didn't like their art. Or, I actually had more trouble with kids who were artistic but couldn't take a challenge to that than I did with students who didn't already think that they had some talent. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what type of behavior you're trying to encourage? I did like 10 years of MTSS and 504, and one that ended up in almost every intervention was positive feedback, but what behavior do you want to promote? Because the student who is athletic, I'm sure Tanner would agree, is in the morning, putting in time in the weight room, eating right. They're doing things that make them more athletic. Some people have God-given talent and, bless their hearts, but not all of us do. So be specific. Over-reliance on tangibles. So the thing that people get wrong about tangibles is it's usually a way to get a person started. Because how many of you have seen this scenario where you start giving a kid a prize and then the prize has to get bigger and bigger and bigger? Because what they're doing is assessing, okay, is this enough to motivate me anymore?
No.
Oh, I want a bigger frog. I want it to be a real frog. Or whatever, And that's because the motivation is over-relying on being extrinsic, being on the outside. So what these things are good for is get the person started. Because if you can't get the person to open up their math textbook, sometimes you might need to give a little incentive to try. It starts to feel transactional. I think everybody understands that. Now, I got another little play act. How many of you have seen those color charts? I'm going to kind of ham up something, but I want to continue picking on Nancy.
You can. Everybody else does.
Nancy, you're not doing a very good job of listening. You're going down.
Oh, it's like the green, yellow,
Yeah,
red.
green, yellow, red chart.
Yeah, you're going down into red. I'm going to call your parents after school.
Great.
Amy, excellent job. We're going to put you up here. Everybody needs to be more like Amy. Does anybody know what the problem with doing it that way is?
Public.
It's public.
Very public.
So it becomes way A, shaming.
It's humiliating.
They also stop their lesson to put on a show. This isn't Shakespeare. You're trying to teach your kids math or whatever the subject is. And those of you that have used a color chart, it actually comes from something called zones of regulation. There's a whole strategy behind it. And that's what I mean where we take the cookie cutter simple version that we take a picture of, but we took away all the stuff it was supposed to do. So the tangibles are supposed to reward the behavior you want to see, but you don't want that to become the only thing the kid's working towards. Let's see. One type of reward I find that's usually a little less susceptible to the tangible problem is time and attention. So if you're like, hey, I've done this one before. If you don't get sent to the principal's office, we're going to do an art lesson at the end of lunch. That time with a caring adult is usually not prone to the I want more and more and more. And a lot of kids are they're looking for that because they're not getting it. And they'll find a way to get it.
I think one thing that works with adults and children, because I'm sure that you would all agree, is that positive reinforcement should be public and negative reinforcement should be private.
Yeah.
I disagree just a little bit with that because there are some kids who don't like the public in the positive either.
Oh,
So
that could
some, adults.
No, I understand.
But you have
That's
to
my frame of mind.
read that each situation because sometimes
Right.
kids are like, oh, I don't want to be the smart one. I don't want to be
Yeah.
the, you know what I mean? That piece. So there can also be that.
Yep.
So when you guys were thinking about, don't worry, I was just trying not to lose my train of thought. So
sorry.
when you guys were thinking of something that really got you motivated, how many of you thought of somebody that just stopped you in a hallway and said, hey, that thing you were doing, it meant a lot to me, or you really made an impact, and the only thing they did was they noticed you? How many have thought of something like that? Somebody, especially if you're a busy adult and you decide to take a minute to be like, hey, Jaden, excellent job on that last math test. That might be the thing that's like, okay, I'm good at this. Sometimes it's the little things, and yeah, little things can have a lot of power. So if you want to use that, you get a prize, and you get a prize, and you get a prize. We all get a prize. Thinking is unaffected. So this book had a very good story in it, and so there was a research study. How many of you have heard the thing where you take 5 minutes a day to write down positives? Okay, there was 2 versions. One group was given an example where, okay, in the last 48 hours, write about positive things that happened to you. And this group was told, just write anything positive. Can anybody guess what happened to the group that said anything?
A way longer list.
There was no list.
No less.
The list looked the same every day.
Yeah,
I love my parents, I love my children,
yeah.
I love that I can breathe, whatever it was. Where the one in the last 48 hours, they had to think. And so what happens to your brain if you get used to noticing positive things? That's a part of your brain you're feeding. So if you have to spend some mental energy, which people like to avoid, identifying positive things, you're going to do it subconsciously. And there's also a joke that goes with this. And hopefully I get it right. Well, are any of you familiar with the Tetris effect? Okay, so you might get where this goes. So there was an insurance liability analyst at the bar. And he was looking pretty down in the mouth. That's just one of those stories. And a man asked him, what's upsetting you so much? The analyst shared, I'm getting a divorce. He asked him if he did anything to try to save his marriage. And he was like, yes, I really did try really hard. He said, well, what did you try to do? Well, I made a list of everything that was wrong in our marriage and how you could minimize the potential risk. And he's like, oh, how did that go over? Well, that's when she told me she wanted a divorce. So not to pick on anybody that has that kind of job, but what the Tetris effect is if you keep looking for certain patterns, you're going to notice them other places. They actually had these people playing Tetris so much that they started seeing how they could put the cereal boxes to solve the puzzle. And so you get used to certain types of mindsets. So are you the type of person that when things get tough, you find a solution? Or do you just go, I'm done, I can't? One helps you keep going and actually makes you resilient. And the other one's like, why bother? How many of you know somebody that's really good at finding problems? Now, don't get me wrong. Those people are important if they also have the solution. Lowering standards. This is one I've seen people do when they're trying to be well-intentioned, and a lot of times they're not trying. Perhaps they had a really bad experience. It's all right that you can't do the problem. You're under a lot of stress, I know, etc. You don't need to do the work. I know it's really confusing, and we'll say that you can do half the problems. Not picking up the half the problem solution. Or saying a student who acts out can't help it. And don't get me wrong, there's scenarios where we make modifications and adjustments, but if you're not careful, what are you accidentally communicating if you're not careful?
Give them the easy route, basically.
Yeah, that's one route. It's okay not to finish.
Not capable.
That's another one that people inadvertently do. I've heard it from the ELL, or I suppose now MMLL department, where you get students that perhaps aren't proficient at the language, and it's easier to give them easier homework. They're not capable. There's a barrier there, but by saying, hey, you can do less, you're communicating that you believe they can do less. And this was a strategy I used as a principal once in a while, and I usually got the kids to go, ah. But it worked. Would you like me to expect less of you? You're like, wow, no. First, have a good relationship with the kid, though. So, positivity isn't the same as lowering the standard to where they're at. So, kind of a rule of thumb, somebody needs to be successful. So that's why we do this sometimes. So okay, we're not having success at this level. But it's okay to not hit the mark once in a while. I think they use kind of 80% of the time that you can make it. So like the kid does need to have a success, the adult does need to have a success, but you don't want to bring it so far down that it's like, it conveys that you don't have faith. Okay, so next exercise, I'm going to start first. I want you to turn to somebody in this room and just tell them that they're awesome, great, fantastic. All right. Now I want you to take your phone, find somebody in the contact, and tell them something specific they did that made them, either they achieved, made you feel good, that they did well. Take a minute to do that. I'll give you a little more time on that one. Out there. How did the second scenario make you feel? How did the second scenario make you feel as a person giving it?
Good.
It does. Warm and fuzzy. Yes. That's the big difference, right? It's more genuine. Genuine, positive praise does mean a lot to people. That's one of the points in this book that it makes specifically. Like, sometimes what this feedback is about is just what you're putting your energy into. Like, are you putting the energy into the things that are going right and encouraging people to go in the right places? Or just, this is awful. And you know, not every day is the sunshine and rainbows, right? Ripples. How we choose to interact with people create ripples. So, Mrs. M was nice to a student, interacts with another student. What is more likely to happen now? If that was positive. More M&Ms. And you know, you get enough people doing positive things.
Spreads.
Yep. So like it, hate it, bemoan it, it's still happening. Are you going to be intentional with what impact you're having? So that was my deep, thoughtful moment. I have no more. So this is from this little book. I strongly recommend it. It's good for adults. It's good for children. If you want to skip the happiness advantage and get the simplified version, there it is. So you want your students, you want other people around you, you want staff, depending on your role, to think to know that what they think matters, that their ideas matter. You want them to know what they do matters, because what happens when you think it doesn't?
You work a lot less hard.
Yeah, like why bother, right? How do you feel about yourself? You want them to know that their effort matters. So I'm going to take my son, and some of you have heard these kinds of stories from me, but like kindergarten, first grade for reading was not great for him. We had AR, and I'm not bashing AR, maybe a little.
Hey, I like AR.
If you do it right, it's good. So that's how a lot of this goes, right? Mm-hmm. But they had everybody in the class had to make this reading standard. And he had an issue. He has ADHD, and his brain runs a little faster at that time than he was taking in information. So he was failing reading test after reading test, and then we had a big party, and guess who sat out? And what do you think he ended, what point do you think he got to that I wasn't great with as a parent?
I'm not good enough.
I'll never be good enough.
Yeah, why bother? And then I had a teacher that worked with me and was flexible. And then I started reading him Harry Potter, which might be part of the reason you occasionally notice Harry Potter paraphernalia on me. I have good experiences with that.
His pants with Harry Potter pants are really cool.
And so we did it together, and he passed that test. Now, even if you took that AR party I mentioned out of the equation, I was still making progress, because he felt like his effort was getting him somewhere. And if he feels like his effort is going to like matter, well then you're willing to give it. If you feel like you're going to work really hard and then just going to hit you in the head with a brick, just hit me in the head with a brick. Save me the time. Nobody has a brick, right? Okay, so we'll be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So here's a bunch of positivity strategies. Food in the staff lounge is on there. And I want you, with the people around you, why do these strategies work when they're done effectively? What undermines them? What is something that like takes what we're talking about and turns it into just kind of fluffy, you know, everybody gets it? And what feedback are you trying to give with this strategy? Does anybody want me to explain anyone on there? You can pick the ones you know. So.
What's four at the door?
Nancy. So glad you're here at school today.
Oh, okay, I get it.
How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great.
There you go.
So four things when you first come in?
Yeah, greeting,
Yeah.
some sort of handshake, look them in the eyes, ask them about something not school related.
Yeah.
I think
It's kind of similar to what you guys are doing.
do it naturally. We didn't really know it was called anything.
Some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just somebody giving it a name. They actually did it with doctors at a hospital. And they watched patient recovery improve. I'm not sure if it's specifically that one, but very similar to it.
Yeah, doctors.
Amen, right? So with somebody next to you, I don't care which one it is, but like, think about those three questions. I'm a believer there's good ways and bad ways to do evaluation. And if your only purpose in doing them is to determine who is satisfactory and unsatisfactory, I don't think that's effective. And if you only see somebody 3 times a year, I mean, maybe you're really good at observing things, but I personally can only take in so much information in one sitting. And I have good days and I have bad days. I had an art class once with 31 kindergartners. Those of you who are elementary, just take that in. There was some days I was like, do I want the principal to come in when I want to cry and hide under my desk or when I'm making it look like I know what I'm doing? Because I had both days. They didn't get the ink lesson, by the way. There was no way I was handling it. Like my stress. So, recap. Be intentional about your hidden messages. If you don't like the term positivity and things like that, being intentional with your feedback. You want people to believe that if they put in the effort, it's going to matter. Because if they don't, why would they? Your actions have ripples. If you have kids that you're encouraging to be positive and help each other and lift each other up, that has exponential impact, in my opinion. Or just with your colleagues, because you guys have a bad day once in a while. Is it nice to have somebody be like, hey, you want to hear about my day? Sometimes you need to unload, so. Your actions are impacted by whether or not you believe in if things matter. So like this book talks about more in depth, like if you only believe your work matters, you tend to focus just on like, hey, I need that paycheck, hey, I need to get those hours, I need to get the job done, but maybe you don't spend much time on other things. If you only think what you do matters and you're out partying and different things, just having a good old time because it doesn't matter what I'm going to get done the next day. I just want to have a good time. So it talks about that. You don't want to be in the quadrant where neither matters. It's not a fun place. And you can drag people along or you can invite them to join you. And I know I've been like yapping at a while because I have a habit to do that. But any takeaways or share outs or thoughts or that kind of thing?
I think that a good attitude is as contagious as a bad attitude is.
Yeah, isn't that why even though the Joker is a villain that people can't help but watch him?
Yeah.
Because he likes what he does. I probably took that in a weird place, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay. Nancy said it's okay.
I had a student this year, she was frustrated with another girl out on the playground. And she's just so mean, she's just so rude all the time. And I'm like, so what can we do about it? I'm just gonna stay away from her. I'm like, yeah, or you can just say, just overload her with kindness. Everything she does, just be kind. And the next day she's like, it worked. We're friends now. It's like, a little positive can go a long way.
Yes. Almost forgot one of the things I was going to do. It's going to be a little bit out of place, but some of you have these little square on your desk. And you may have noticed this little paper rabbit. This is really easy to make. Go.
Do it.
Do it. It's not that hard.
What, you don't know how to make a paper rabbit?
This is so easy.
Good job. And it may be easy, but until I take the time to show you how, it's not going to be easy, right?
Even if you show me once, I might need it again.
I have a fun story about it. But.
Okay, but you didn't show us. Now show us. I want to know.
Okay. Okay.
It's like,
Okay. If this is your thing, you don't have to do it. You can fold it in half.
you sticky side out, I'm assuming.
It's easier if you do that.
It's easier with the stick.
Then you have a mountain,
I did a sticky side in.
and then your rabbits are going to go fly a kite. There's actually a story that goes with this, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Then you have this kite.
Don't go so fast.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I
Yeah,
need the
tell me.
visual.
I was trying to get my post-it note on the outside.
See,
Okay.
you got half,
We're
and
flying
a
a kite,
kite,
okay.
flying a kite. And then they're going to take a nap in a teepee.
Huh?
It's not to make sense, it's just to remember the steps.
Folded it.
Yeah, I folded this bottom part up.
For the other side, because Lori. Right? Okay. Okay.
You need to work on your directions.
I want a visual on it.
I'll recap.
Thank you, board.
Fold it in half. You get a triangle. You unfold it. I forgot to say that. And then you fold it to the center line. It'll make like a kite shape.
Okay, good.
Okay. And you fold the little top triangle down.
Again, you're going back over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the teepee. And then you're going to have a little ice cream. Just a little. Because the person at Dairy Queen is going to be skimpy.
So just put a little bit on the top.
Just a little bit on the top.
Yeah.
And then you turn it over.
Side works well now.
And you line up, you kind of fold it so that it kind of lines up with the tail.
Oh, I must have missed a step.
Did that line
Yep.
up?
It's not too fussy, but like somewhere where this little tail is. Yes. And you just fold that in half. And this is the hard part to show, but you like pull the head and you have a rabbit.
Towards the head.